But to start out, I want to talk about intersectionality, right? The Green Party is an intersectional eco-socialist party. By that, we mean that we understand that identities and experiences interact with one another, and they create different material conditions related to their oppression or privilege, right? Factors such as race, gender, sexuality, disability, class, they interact and they overlap, and they create a wide range of like unique manifestations of oppression and privilege, depending on kind of how they stack up for each of us, right? With that in mind, the Green Socialist, movement should be looking beyond traditional Western socialist texts, right? That kind of historical socialism that we talked about more in our previous workshops. And I linked to the piece by Kimberly Crenshaw, where intersectionality was coined in 1989. And then I've got this, the graphic on the side that kind of gives an understanding of what a visual representation of intersectionality, right? In my case, as a straight white male, right, that came from a largely middle-class background, despite, I'd say, despite the fact that most of my life, I've been working class, and living paycheck to paycheck. My history, my upbringing was very much middle class, and so when I start looking at my intersections, we're often talking about privilege, right? I have privilege from being white. I have privilege from being a male. I have privilege from growing up in a middle class background. I have privilege that I have a degree in political philosophy. Right, even though I used it to become a preschool teacher to make shit money, I still have a privilege to have that degree and have that education. But it works the other way too, right? And the original kind of formulation of the idea of intersectionality came as Kimberly Crenshaw was trying to express the uniqueness of being a Black woman and the dual oppressions that she faced, right? And understanding that, the experiences of what racism is looks different if you're a Black male versus a Black woman, even, right, within the same race. But then especially if we're talking about what racism looks like and what solutions look like and what the everyday material problems look like are completely different in terms of racism, depending on whether you are, whether you're a Black American, whether you're Indigenous, whether you're Latinx, right? Whether you're Asian Pacific Islander, that kind of thing, right? They all manifest differently. And then we can throw on like, okay, you're also queer. So now there's a whole new level of oppressions and possible, privileges and things like that can come. And so these things stack, right? And it's not just, it's kind of a rejection of traditional socialist class reductionism, which is the idea that if we deal with capitalism, all these other things will go away, right? The idea that racism is a construct of capitalism that will go away if we end capitalism. But racism has existed since before, bigotry, whatever we want to call it, has existed. Othering has existed since far beyond capitalism, right? And will probably, it's shown that it can adjust and survive through systems. So intersectionality is kind of understanding that these kind of oppressions or privileges stack and they create very unique things, very unique conditions, and things that will help one person suffering from racism can hurt another person suffering from racism. And so what that generally means is we need to very much cast a larger net. We need to be looking and listening to the experiences of people who are actually under these oppressions, right? This is a very theoretical, right, a theory and analytics, type of workshop that we do here. But the reality is we really need to focus on experiences as much as we do on, academic writings, and more so. We skew way too much into the academic side, but